Good evening, I'm Mateusz and you're watching World News Tonight, live from Warsaw. Strengthened protection of the Baltic Sea by NATO is becoming a fact, says Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk. NATO ships will be patrolling the Baltic Sea to prevent more acts of underwater sabotage. This comes following a meeting of leaders of Poland, Denmark, Sweden, Germany, Finland and the Baltic states in Helsinki. More on that in a moment, but first let's listen to the latest headlines. The German Defense Minister pays an unannounced visit to Kyiv to express solidarity with the Ukrainian people. Former Polish Prime Minister Mateusz Morawiecki elected as the president of the European Conservatives and Reformists party. And Jerzy Owsiak, founder and president of the Great Orchestra of Christmas Charity, finds himself targeted by death threats. NATO is determined to protect the Baltic Sea and is launching the Baltic Sentry mission as the region faces suspected sabotage attempts and the activity of Russia's so-called shadow fleet. It was Poland who proposed strengthening military control in the Baltic Sea. Our chief political correspondent, Aaron Damon, reports from Helsinki.
We will do what it takes. That was the message from NATO Secretary-General Mark Rutte as he unveiled Baltic Sentry, a new mission to increase NATO's maritime presence in the Baltic Sea. We're talking frigates, we're talking air patrols and even drones. Now, Mr Rutte was here at the presidential palace behind me in Helsinki at the invitation of the President of Finland, Alexander Stubb, and Estonian Prime Minister Kristen Michel. They all met with Baltic Sea leaders, and this is what Mr Rutte told us after that meeting.
Ship captains must understand that potential threats to our infrastructure will have consequences, including possible boarding, impounding and arrest. And while such law enforcement roles are for national authorities, we are best served when there is complementarity between NATO's efforts to detect threats and deter aggression and national efforts to enforce the law.
I also spoke exclusively to the Executive Vice President of the European Commission, Hanna Virkkunen, and asked her, has enough been done to protect the Baltic Sea?
It's for sure that we have to do more because there has been several incidents now during the last months, as we know. So we have to be sure that we can secure and we can make sure that we have a safe and secure environment in Baltic Sea.
So would the region consider completely shutting the Baltic Sea if the attacks continue? I put that to German Chancellor Olaf Scholz.
I'm sure that we will have to look at the situation and that we do our best to have an open sea and that trade can happen in the Baltics and also the infrastructure is safe. This is why we meet together.
This diplomatic day out in Finland was all about a show of regional unity and protecting the Baltic Sea from what's happening on and under the surface. In Helsinki, for TVP World, I'm Aaron Darman.
Polish officials say they cannot confirm information provided to TVP World by a source in the Polish Foreign Ministry about a Russian shadow fleet ship spotted near the Baltic Pipe. The news comes as the Polish Prime Minister attends the NATO Baltic Sea Summit in Helsinki, where European maritime security is at the top of the agenda. Alex Sumliński has more.
Sources have revealed to TVP World that a Russian shadow tanker was spotted near a crucial gas pipeline to the country. Allegedly, the ship was circling near a section of the Baltic Pipe pipeline, transporting Norwegian gas to Poland via the Baltic Sea. The news comes after months of repeated incidents of suspected sabotage, from the severing of internet cables to dragging anchors along the sea floor. This was the response of the Polish Prime Minister.
If anything were to occur in Polish territorial waters, and I hope it doesn't, Poland will not hesitate to detain the offending vessel. If a Russian vessel is found to be conducting suspicious maneuvers in the vicinity of a pipeline, that's sufficient cause to undertake immediate action, as agreed in today's meeting. This is a serious matter, and I do not intend to improvise here. As soon as I have a confirmed report, I will make a public announcement regarding the measures we have undertaken in response.
The Polish Armed Forces Operational Command issued a press release the same day, stating that the described incident had not taken place.
The Polish Armed Forces Operational Command does not confirm today's media allegations of a Russian Shadow Fleet vessel reportedly maneuvering in the vicinity of Poland's Baltic Pipe. The incident in question did not take place. As part of Operation Bay, ongoing since 2022, the Polish Navy has been monitoring and securing critical infrastructure located in Poland's exclusive economic zone in the Baltic Sea.
During Tuesday's conference regarding the future of transatlantic relations in Warsaw, Poland's defense minister did not refer to the matter.
And we're staying on the topic. The shallow waters of the Baltic Sea have become a battleground of Russian hybrid warfare, experts say, after a series of sabotage attempts targeted underwater links and pipelines. TVP World security correspondent Marek Steele takes a look at some of the incidents that have made waves in NATO countries along the Baltic Sea.
The threat to underwater infrastructure in the Baltic has reached a critical point after a number of links were found to have been severed by Russian Shadow Fleet vessels.
For the time being, some states, including Poland, lack vessels that could react quickly to the sort of incidents we've seen off the coasts of Sweden, Finland and Estonia.
The series of events began with the explosions that damaged the Nord Stream 1 and 2 gas pipelines in 2022. Germany imported a significant portion of its gas from Russia through Nord Stream 1. The second link was never operational, as Berlin withheld its opening shortly before Russia launched its invasion of Ukraine. Last year's severing of the Baltic Connector gas pipeline linking Estonia and Finland, and a breach of the Estonia-Sweden EES-1 communications cable that same day was likely caused by anchor dragging. The end of last year saw more incidents of this kind. In November, Chinese cargo ship Yipeng 3 was suspected of breaking 2 cable links, one between Lithuania and Sweden and another connecting Germany and Finland. On Christmas Day, the power link connecting Finland and Estonia was damaged, most likely by a vessel belonging to Russia's so-called Shadow Fleet. Eagle S reportedly dragged its anchor for dozens of miles, severing the cable. The problem with countering the Russian Shadow Fleet, originally formed to evade sanctions on Russian oil, is the jurisdiction in international waters.
When the vessel is entering the country water, which is only 12 miles zone from the shore side, then of course the jurisdiction of each country increase. But up to the vessel is on the, I would say, international waters, then is the difficulties what can be done.
We're coming a bit closer, so we'll... Leaders across the region are in agreement. The Baltic Sea has become a battleground of hybrid warfare.
It's very clear that Baltic is extremely important area for Russia, for NATO, and it becomes the region of not only competition, but also of rivalry.
The Baltic incident saga may not end soon.
German Defense Minister Boris Pistorius arrived unexpectedly in Kyiv on Tuesday to express solidarity with the Ukrainian people amid the ongoing Russian invasion of the country. His visit coincided with Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov's accusations against the US, claiming it engaged in energy terrorism by targeting Russian energy infrastructure through Ukraine. Sonia Gatabishchan has more.
German Defense Minister Boris Pistorius visited Kyiv on Tuesday to express ongoing support for Ukraine's fight against the Russian invasion.
Above all, the message we need to send 1 week before US President Donald Trump takes office is that we in Europe, that NATO partners, are standing by Ukraine.
During the visit, Pistorius told President Zelensky that Germany's €3 billion aid package for Ukraine has already been prepared. However, it still requires further negotiations inside the government, which is proving to be difficult ahead of Germany's snap elections on February 23rd.
There are many challenges in the world right now, and I think that the risk of not defending Ukraine today is that you'll have to think how to defend yourself tomorrow.
Boosting defense spending in Europe took center stage at the meeting of the Big Five that Pistorius attended the day before in Warsaw, alongside defense ministers of Poland, the UK, France and Italy. In response to Russia's aggression, Ukraine launched a large drone and missile attack on factories and energy facilities across Russia. The strikes are reported to have ignited a blaze at the Saratov oil refinery and triggered a fire at an industrial complex in the city of Kazan. In his annual news conference on Tuesday, Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov accused the US of sabotaging the last pipeline carrying Russian gas into the EU by inciting Ukrainian attacks on Russia.
The US does not need any competitor in any area, starting with the energy sector, where they are unhesitatingly authorizing terrorist measures to destroy the foundation of the EU's energy prosperity. They also are inciting their Ukrainian clients to disrupt the Turk Stream pipeline.
Lavrov is hilarious. He's talking about energy terrorism. He's talking about this when the Russians have been attacking energy infrastructure in Ukraine for years. So this is not energy terrorism by the Ukrainians. It's a smart economic and smart military move to try to shut down the ability of the Russians to wage war.
On Monday, emergency shutdowns were implemented in the Zhytomyr region in the aftermath of the overnight strike. Ukrenergo, the national grid operator, also warned that the power system status could change due to emergency repairs following last year's extensive attacks.
Former Polish Prime Minister Mateusz Morawiecki is taking on a new role after the Conservative politician was today voted in as the new president of the European Conservatives and Reformists party in Brussels. Removing red tape, strengthening borders and protecting freedom of speech will top his agenda. EU correspondent Angela Skudgens has the latest from Brussels.
I'm reporting from a hotel where just hours ago Mateusz Morawiecki, Poland's former Prime Minister, was voted in as the new president of the European Conservative and Reformist Party via a process of acclamation. Now, the ECR is the fourth largest group in European Parliament and was formerly headed up by Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni. But in December, she announced that after 6 years in the top job, she would be stepping away and backed Morawiecki's bid to take over. Now, he told reporters today that he would pursue a conservative agenda as part of his ECR mandate. This includes strengthening borders, freedom of speech protections, as well as taking a power away from Brussels and bringing it back into the hands of member states. But in terms of what he wants to do for Warsaw, he said removing red tape was at the top of his agenda. Here is what he had to say.
We are going to focus on red tape and all the bureaucracy which is hampering the development of the economic development all over Europe. And could you imagine what is going to happen when the red tape elimination will really be brought about by the guys in the United States, Vivek Ramaswamy, Elon Musk, the Doge, and so on. We will be even farther out to our competitors, American competitors. So we have to really take bull by the horns, and we have to be very serious about this.
Reporters were also informed today that Morawiecki, as the president of the ECR, was invited to the inauguration ceremony of US President-elect Donald Trump in the country's capital on the 20th of January. We also have recently found out that European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen was not invited to that ceremony. And while Morawiecki certainly bristled with Brussels when he was Prime Minister of Poland, Giorgia Meloni, when she was ECR president, certainly had cosy relations with von der Leyen. So we will wait and see what happens at this inauguration ceremony and if relations between Warsaw and Washington can be furthered. This is the latest from Brussels. My name is Angela Skudgens, reporting for TVP World.
The head of one of Poland's most high-profile foundations, Jerzy Owsiak, said he has received a slate of online threats less than 2 weeks shy of the grand finale of his organization's annual fundraiser. This has fueled fears of his safety 6 years after the assassination of a Polish mayor at the charities event in Gdańsk. Piotr Miszczuk reports.
The distinctive red heart-shaped stickers appear on the coats of Polish politicians every winter as a token of appreciation for the Great Orchestra of Christmas charity, which for over 30 years has been raising funds to shore up Polish hospitals.
I believe that Jerzy Owsiak and the Great Orchestra of Christmas charity are doing a lot of good for Poland, with hundreds of millions of euros in medical equipment donated to hospitals. I've supported the organization since its earliest days. You could say I was brought up with it. As I was still a boy when it first started its work, he's given his all to thousands of volunteers, and the equipment he's bought with the donations has saved millions of lives, old and young. This is of utmost importance.
But the founder of the charity drive, Jerzy Owsiak, has of late been receiving online threats.
This is going to be brief. Kill Owsiak, shoot him right in the head. This is an internet post from yesterday. Well, this is getting heated quick. Hey, you guys over at Republika, do you have any idea what you're doing? And another post, 23,000 euro for killing Owsiak, but we're pushing on and have reported it to the police.
The abuse is believed to have been instigated by far-right anti-government TV station Republika, which openly sympathizes with the opposition Conservative Law and Justice Party. One man has been arrested for threatening Owsiak.
The man said as part of his testimony that he was motivated by watching one of the reports aired by Republika, in which Jerzy Owsiak was shown in a bad light.
The threats surrounding the charity bring back the traumatic memories of the 2019 fatal stabbing of Paweł Adamowicz, a mayor of the Polish port city of Gdańsk. During the charity's grand finale 6 years ago, a man rushed the stage where he stabbed the politician several times. Having suffered wounds to his heart and stomach, Adamowicz died the next day. These events sent shockwaves across the world, prompting crowds across Poland to take to the streets in homage to Adamowicz. He is also considered by many to be a victim of a hate campaign.
We miss him a lot. He was an incredibly strong man, despite all the hate that he received. He was able to take in stride.
On potrafił to brać bardzo mocno na klatę.
And there are growing concerns that verbal abuse might be escalating to actual violence.
This incitement of hate speech, this sort of relentless slander, may give rise to some twisted minds to the idea of actually attacking someone.
The opposition Law and Justice Party dismisses these claims. Its members accuse the foundation, however, of insufficient financial reporting and point out that Owsiak is facing threats because in recent years he has become more politically involved, openly supporting the Civic Coalition, the biggest group in the ruling coalition in Poland.
Jerzy Owsiak himself is politically active because, after all, he got involved in the election campaign on the side of the Civic platform, and every politician receives threats.
But hate will not stop the thousands of Great Orchestra volunteers from raising funds, and the charity's goal this year is to support pediatric oncology and hematology wards. The fundraiser aims to further prop up Poland's struggling healthcare system.
Across all finales to date, we have collected more than €500 million, with which we have managed to buy 74,500 pieces of medical equipment.
The 2025 grand finale of the Great Orchestra of Christmas charity will be held across Poland on January the 26th.
Crisis in Transnistria is deepening as the separatist Moldovan region is running short on coal, and soon rolling power shutdowns in Tiraspol will give way to permanent blackouts. The leader of this Russian-dependent region hopes that Moscow will restore gas supplies before lights in Tiraspol go off for good. Our correspondent Paweł Trzaskowski is on site and has more details.
Transnistria, the breakaway region of Moldova, still grapples with energy crisis, and this is why its leader travelled to Moscow. This comes from Maia Sandu, Moldova's president, who also said on Tuesday that Russia is solely responsible for inducing the energy crisis in Transnistrian region.
And to be very clear, Tiraspol's refusal to accept help from Moldova is not its own, but the Kremlin's. Tiraspol does not decide whether it can accept help or not. It is very clear that the Kremlin is behind this irrational refusal. I know about Krasnoselski's visit to Moscow, and this is yet another proof that Chișinău is not an impediment to finding a solution.
On Tuesday, I spoke to Radu Marian, a Moldovan MP, who provided me with an outlook on the current humanitarian crisis in Transnistria.
Approximately 300,000 people living there. Most of them have no heating in their house. They have electricity outages of up to 8 hours a day. Temperatures in the flats can drop to 10 degrees. And we know there are some victims of cold.
Transnistrian power plant usually works on natural gas imported from Russia. But since Russia no longer supplies Transnistria with gas, Transnistrians now use coal to fuel the power plant. But the supplies of coal are supposed to last for no more than 20 days. And when Transnistria runs out of these supplies, it will be left without electricity altogether. So far, the region has refused help from Moldova, Ukraine and the European Union, and it seems that its leaders are still looking to Russia to intervene. From Chișinău, Moldova, for TVP World, I'm Paweł Trzaskowski.
Germany is gripped by election fever, while far-right AfD tries to mobilize its voters with the idea of so-called remigration. The ruling SPD assures Ukraine of its unwavering support by the Defense Minister Boris Pistorius paying an unexpected visit to Kyiv. And to talk about the recent developments in Germany's election campaign, we're joined by political scientist Professor Daniela Schwarzer, Executive Board Member at Bertelsmann Stiftung. Good evening.
Good evening.
Let's start with Baltic policy, as today leaders of NATO countries that share the Baltic shore met in Helsinki to discuss patrolling the Baltic Sea. So how important is the safety of Baltic's infrastructure to Germany?
Well, obviously, Germany is a country that borders the Baltic Sea and sees, of course, that hybrid attacks are happening right now almost by the day. And so in terms of energy provisions, in terms of telecommunications and other linkages through the Baltic Sea, Germany is affected and considers Baltic Sea security as something that is very important. And I think the news, of the past days or the first days of this year only prove this point, that it is of huge importance that the neighbors bordering the Baltic Sea, such as Germany, Poland, the Baltic states, and also Scandinavian countries, that we all together step up efforts to protect infrastructure that runs through the Baltic Sea.
Today, Defense Minister Boris Pistorius paid an unexpected visit to Kyiv. Now, do you think this visit will rather boost SPD's support or have an adverse effect on it?
I think that for the next weeks ahead, until the general elections, the SPD position on Ukraine will remain very stable. The Chancellor also reiterated, and as did our Defense Minister Boris Pistorius, that Germany stands by its commitments. He also said something that goes beyond the elections, and that is that Germany stays committed to Ukraine even after the general elections. That is because also the Christian Democrats, who are currently running first and will probably be the party that provides the next chancellor, they also have a firm commitment to supporting Ukraine. So the position is very clear. Voters in Germany are also pretty stable with regards to the question, should Germany continue to support Ukraine militarily and financially? There has been support since the beginning of the war, but we also, in the electoral campaign in particular, have strong voices from the far left and the far right who propagate the idea that there is an easy solution and end to the war, and that there could be negotiations that would actually lead to peace. As far as I see the German debate evolving, there's a lot of realism with regards to Russia and Putin's goals in that war. And I personally perceive a low, if not absent readiness on the Russian side to even go into negotiations. So this debate plays a role in the German electoral campaign, but I do not think that the visit to Ukraine will particularly move voters into one or the other direction. However, it is more complicated now for the governing parties and the future government, given that we have this opposition from the far left and the far left right to Ukraine support to uphold the story. But currently they still do, and I don't think that will change before election day.
Maybe higher taxes to pay for NATO protection will move German voters. Chancellor Olaf Scholz has already stated that Germany cannot afford to pay 5% of GDP, as it would effectively lower the pensions and affect everyday lives of German citizens. Now, could the next ruling party, hypothetically, given that it will be Christian Democrats, could they change this approach?
Well, I think the debate in Germany has moved in terms of assessing what we need to spend for security and defense. Right now, Germany has reached the 2% of GDP NATO goal for the first time since last year. And the promise goes back years in time after the annexation of Crimea in 2014, when NATO then committed to reaching the goal of 2% of GDP per country. So this took a long time. Germany's there. Now comes Donald Trump with that idea that 5% shall be spent. So I take the response by Olaf Scholz as a necessary response, given the electoral campaign, that this number is not a given. However, we need to have a far more serious debate, and that is the question on what do we need to spend and how do we need to spend. And I believe that after the elections, when the new government is formed, there will be a very important conversation to be had, not only within Germany, so how much do we need to invest in our own security and defense, but also how, as Europeans organized in the European Union, but also how, as Europeans within NATO, do we better team up to spend, yes, more than we currently do, but also spend better. And there I see, if I look at what the Christian Democrats have said, who will likely be the strongest party after the next general elections and will provide the chancellor, there is a likelihood that this debate will move forward. But it's more important, I think, to discuss what we actually need to do and how we spend the money in the most intelligent way, enhancing European cooperations and synergies that we need to lift in terms of cooperating better among Europeans as part of NATO. They're now focusing on the question, is 3 the right number, or 4% the right number, or 5%? So I think there will be movement in the discussion.
Professor, you said that support for Ukraine is keeping the same levels among various groups of voters. Now, I'd like to reverse the question. One of the parties that would like to stop any help for Ukraine is obviously AfD. Now, last weekend, AfD presented its ideas, including resuming gas contracts with Russia. Now, is this pro-Russian agenda helping it gather more votes at this stage of the campaign?
Well, it's part of a mix. AfD campaigns on many issues, and this pro-Russian stance and the promises that a good deal can be made with Russia over Ukraine, but also over gas deliveries, that is only part of the bigger mix. The party campaigns mainly on migration issues, the idea of sending home immigrants very easily, as you have already mentioned, that is also very present, and they push this issue in a very strong way. Then there's the Ukraine-Russia issue, and then there is, of course, an economic agenda, speaking to the concerns and fears of the people. The problem is not so much whether the AfD positions on Russia will help it to attract more voters, but it actually, beyond AfD, it changes the tone in the debate, because what the far right does is create an illusion that there can be an easy fix to Russia's war in Ukraine and that there can be a stable negotiated deal.
Professor, lastly, in one sentence, yes. I'd like to ask you one more thing. Will AfD be part of the next government in Germany? Absolutely not, or maybe we'll see.
I don't think so. All parties that are likely to shape the government have clearly said that they are not willing to work with AfD on the federal level, and that position is very firm. However, we may see a scenario where AfD could be the largest opposition party if the three other largest parties have to form a government together. If a two-party coalition is not enough, as a consequence, AfD could be the largest opposition party, which it already was once, but that gives it, of course, also a stronger role in parliament, in chairing committees and having other roles. So in any case, it is likely that AfD will be heard more after the next federal elections, but the moderate parties, the pro-European, pro-democratic parties, stand very firm with their commitment not to work with AfD in government.
Having said that, we should also remember about what happened in Austria not that long ago. Professor Daniela Schwarzer, Executive Board Member at Bertelsmann Stiftung, was our guest this evening. Thank you very much, Professor.
Thank you for having me.
And thank you for watching, and stay with us for more here on TVP World.